Oops. And I have definitely found a couple of spelling errors. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to go through some of the books that I read this year. I'm going to kind of talk about what's in each book, but also just share the things that I liked and that I didn't like about the book as well. So this year I tried to read more books. The last video I did was in 2020 because that was the pandemic, and I actually started reading again and I actually read books. But this year it was really hard, so I'm trying every year to get better. But this year again, I feel like I fell back a little bit because I had a full-time job and life and my business and everything, and it's really hard sometimes then to sit there in the evening and read a book as well. And then I find myself being on public transport where I could read my book. I end up making TikToks or making YouTube shorts and stuff like that. So there's all these, I guess you could call them excuses for why I did not read as many books this year, but I honestly think also I just didn't have a very good selection of books. Which brings me to this pile here. That's my Bible. I did not read the entire thing this year, that just happens to be there. That's funny. I don't remember putting my books on my Bible. The pile looks bigger than it is because I have my Bible in the pile. We have a bunch of books. Whoa. Okay, this is getting out of hand. These are the books that I read this year, but I must confess I did not read all of them all the way through. I'm going to tell you why. So I haven't actually even sorted these out into different categories, but we have a couple of fiction, and then we have some non-fiction, some Christian non-fiction, some fiction, some very non-fiction, some more non-fiction, some more non-fiction. Okay, mostly they were non-fiction this year. This is kind of, oops. This book is wonderful. I just haven't got around to finishing it. I'm pretty much halfway through. This is Ernest Hemingway. It's called A Movable Feast. It's basically about Hemingway's time in Paris as a writer in the 1920s, and I really like it, but every time I read it, it makes me want to go to Paris, and I currently am not going to Paris, so I kind of get a little bit melancholy when I read it, but it's really nice. I like the way that he just talks about his life and the way that he talks about his daily life, and I don't know, just the way he shares, like, I mean, these conversations are so nice, like the way he's talking to his wife, like, what should we get for dinner tonight, and just really, and then he describes the food with immense detail, and then he talks about, I mean, I haven't even gotten to the part where he actually meets Zelda Fitzgerald and Scott Fitzgerald, but it's kind of halfway through, more than halfway through the book. So I'm excited to finish this, but I haven't finished it yet because for fiction, I feel like I need, well, it's not fiction really, is it? Because it's his life, but for stuff like novels and stuff like this, I don't even know what, this isn't a novel either, but for stuff like this, like storytelling, it takes me such a long time to get through books right now because I want to actually learn from books. So it's really hard for me to get through books that are just stories. It's so nice. I really like this book, and it's so tiny. I think I got it 2 years ago, so I should have finished it by now. That's number one. This was actually one of the first books I read this year. I took it back from my parents' house. It was on my mum's shelf, and it's a Christian book. It's non-fiction, and it's all about, like, as a Christian, like as a worship leader, as a singer, really about like how to serve God with your music well. Yeah, it's basically talking about like what it means to really be face down in worship, what it really means to surrender everything to God, and he talks about that. So this is from Matt Redman. He is a Christian artist, like a singer, and I mean, this book is like, I think it's almost 20 years old. Yeah, it's pretty much 20 years old, but he talks about like stuff that is still relevant today. It says here, face down worship always begins as a posture of the heart. It's a person so desperate for the increase of Christ that they find themselves decreasing to the ground in acts of reverent submission. A soul so captivated by the Almighty that to bend low in true and total surrender seems the only appropriate response. Matt Redman's book takes us on a journey into wonder, reverence, and mystery, urging us to recover the otherness of God in our worship. So it's all about like how we can actually really come closer to God during our worship and total surrender. So it's very, in a way, like factual, but I really loved it and I need to go through it again because I also underlined some stuff. Let's see, is there anything that I can share? I mean, I just remember that he was talking about like the way that we get so involved and so almost captivated too much by social media. And I mean, back then in 2004, like there was not so much social media, but he was talking about media and how it really sucks us in. But it's like, you know, where are we going? What are we going to as Christians? The call on all of our lives is to journey beyond melodies and harmonies, beyond lyrics and poetry. You know, it's not about standing on a stage, it's about leading people in worship and get closer to God. So that's, yeah. I finished it in February, so I really don't remember what happens in this book, but I need to just read it again because it's so good. Then another one that I picked up from, actually this is funny because my auntie had this book, but actually it was a present from my mum to my auntie. So I have this book and my mum also has a copy of this book. Now obviously I'm not a wife yet. You guys would know if I was a wife or if I was anywhere close to becoming a wife. But this book, I really, really liked this as well. You know, as a Christian as well, I'm so aware of the fact that praying over every single aspect of your life and of your partner's life is so important. And like she says here, there is so much power in a praying wife. And Stormie Omartian actually has lots of books in this series. She's got The Power of a Praying Teen, The Power of a Praying Husband, The Power of a Praying Mom. It's got prayers in the end of each chapter with Bible verses. So really, really tangible, really practical. You know, it says like there's like a prayer and then it says insert your husband's name and then you can pray for your husband in that way. And yeah, so I was always just praying over my future husband. Yeah, it's a good book. So that was one that took me pretty much all summer to get through as well. I'll sort out a little bit as well because this is kind of also in the same area. This is something that my boyfriend and I have actually bought, which we are going through right now, and it is just a practical book. It's just questions, and it's 101 questions to ask before you get engaged, which honestly, like, oh, I lost my bookmark. Honestly, it's one of those things that I feel like a lot of couples don't do. Obviously, it's not my place to look at other people's relationships, but I feel like a lot of people potentially go into relationships, into marriage or into engagement without going through some of the hardest questions. And it is reflective of how much we see relationships fail again as well these days, because people actually don't talk about certain things that you really have to talk about. This is written by a Christian guy, so it is kind of also Bible based. It's in general a really, 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 really good book. The blurb says, how can I be sure? Is he really right for me? Deciding to spend the rest of your life with someone is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make. The key to successful marriage is getting to know the partner before you take the plunge. Relationship expert and noted couples counsellor Wright will steer you through a series of soul-searching questions, even difficult ones that need to be addressed to help you discern if you've met the one, including things like your spiritual journeys, how you'd handle finances, whose families you'll spend the holidays with, previous relationships and breakups, and potentially annoying habits and patterns. And he says right at the beginning, it says, warning, never get engaged, never marry or get engaged to a stranger. And sometimes we think we know people, but this really helps you get to know your partner. So can't recommend this enough, and this is my reminder to do this and finish this with my boyfriend. Hopefully before we get engaged. So the next one again is fiction. I freaking love this book so much, and well, I love the story, I love Jane Austen. I actually watched the movie of Emma before I read the book, which has happened to me with pretty much all of Jane Austen's stuff. Like I also have never read Jane Eyre is not by Jane Austen. I've never read any of the classics. I haven't read Pride and Prejudice. I haven't read Emma. You know, I watched the movies first every single time because first of all, it was breaking so much that I had to glue it back together. And when I took it with me to England at Christmas last year, all the pages started falling out in the plane and I was like, no! So I had to like kind of glue it together, and it's still very delicate. And like I said again, the only reason I haven't got through this is because I have been reading more like factual books this year. So yeah, that's a really good book, and one day when I have like a week to sit down and read a book and have nothing else to do in my life, maybe I'll finish this. Another book that, oh wait, hang on. I did actually also read almost all of Pride and Prejudice because I found, first of all, I listened to a podcast on Spotify, which was a play, like an audio play of the book Pride and Prejudice, which was really fun from some theatre in Australia. They did like an audio book with like real like sound effects and everything, and it was really, really fun to listen to. So I pretty much listened to all of that. Obviously I know the story of Pride and Prejudice as well because I've watched the movie about 20 times. However, I also wanted to read the book, so I found the what's the word? The digital version, the PDF, but unfortunately, because I don't have like a tablet, it was really annoying to read on my phone and also really annoying to read on my laptop, so I kind of stopped as well, because when you're like snuggled in bed, you don't want to be reading on your laptop. I kind of gave that up, but hopefully one day I'll also just get a book version of the book, because Pride and Prejudice is one of my favourite stories of all time. Yeah, definitely gonna want to read that at some point. I'm literally like, I feel like I'm gonna read all these books. Hey babe. Hi, I'm in the middle of shooting a video. Where was I? Oh. Yeah, when I'm retired and I have time, I'll probably get through all of these fiction books, but that's gonna be a long time. The next one that I read, actually I don't have it here because I borrowed it from my friend, is this book which really was one of the best books I read this year, called The Defining Decade. And that was one of the best things I've ever read. I'm gonna insert a picture here. Honestly, such a good book. It's all about how to basically make the most of your 20s, and kind of how, you know, people are always like, oh, your 20s are for like making mistakes and kind of going out and partying and having fun and not really caring about your future, but it's the actual opposite. 20s are actually the most defining decade of your life, because your frontal lobe hasn't like completely developed. It's by Meg J, and it's basically this book, Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of Them. And I think also for anyone who's above 20 or just about to exit their 20s, like, or even hasn't become 20 yet, still read it, because it is a very, very good, helpful book. Very factual about like the different ways in which you can actually make your 20s better. Meg J argues that far from being an inconsequential stage of life, the 20-something years are in fact crucial to our future. Why living together is not a good test for marriage and can actually increase the chances of divorce. How a temporary, unusual job can influence your career. Why 20-somethings should be happy that their options are limited, not endless. And why postponing having a family into your 30s often leads to trouble. Yeah, and she's a therapist, so she's literally got all these stories of all these young people who have all these crises, and she talks about them and what we can do to change that. So I think I need to buy that book because I want to read it again, 100%. I learned so much from that book. The next book that I have been trying to read for the last 3 years is this. Girl Boss is something that you probably have heard of. It's also a series on Netflix now, and Sophia Amoruso is a multi-million business owner. She started Nasty Gal. Nasty Gal is like a huge brand as well, so I was really interested in reading this. Once again, I watched the Netflix series and I feel like that was enough for me, because I was like, cool, I understand how she built her business, and it's like it's not one of those books like, yeah, it's all about girl bossing your way through life, but it's not one of those books where I can be like, oh yeah, this is really helpful for my career, or this is really helpful for my business. I feel like it's not doing anything for me. Like, yes, it says here, in the space of 10 years, Sophia Amoruso has gone from a high school dropout to founder of 2 companies, Nasty Gal and the Girl Boss Foundation. Yeah, I think it's cool, but I've also heard that sometimes she's not a very nice employer. I don't know much about that. Kicked herself in the ass and kicked her way through a lot of things. But it's not inspiring to me. So like you can see, I'm halfway through. It's not a book that I would recommend to other people. I've tried, honestly. Just watch the series on Netflix, it's quite good. That was my honest review about Girl Boss. A different book that I freaking loved this year is Your Finances. What a good book. Oh my gosh. I was in the store in the summer with my boyfriend and saw this, and it just spoke to me straight away, and he bought it for me, and he was like, yeah, I'll always invest into you and into your future, and if this helps your future, then I'll totally buy it for you. And it really has helped. It's literally called Your Handbook to Financial Freedom. And yeah, basically this girl, Melissa Browne from Australia, she talks about you know, making smart decisions, freeing yourself from financial fog, and how to take control of your money. It says here, whether you want to get out of your overdraft, get clued up on credit, maximize your savings, or achieve your dream to buy a property, this book is full of no bullshit information for anyone who needs a fresh approach. And there's this like thing with like a 30-day financial detox. Yeah, there's some really inspirational quotes. Funnily enough, there's also a quote from Sophia Amoruso from Girl Boss, ironically. But yeah, you definitely need to read this book. It's very open, very transparent, and she basically starts off by like even asking the question, why are we all so screwed up when it comes to our finances? What's going on, you know? So this is really, really, really good. So that's that. Honestly, everyone should read that book. Okay, then we have another one, which I haven't been able to get through. I'm not that happy with it. Yeah. I tried. I wanted to read it, and I wanted to learn more about emotional intelligence and kind of like how we can become more emotionally intelligent, because that's something that I've been working on with myself the last couple of years. Again, I've only got halfway through because other books were more interesting. Like, it's a good factual book, but the thing is, I bought this on Amazon and it's like not amazing because first of all, the text is really, really small, and I also don't like books. This is a very weird thing, but I don't like books that have really white paper. Like this is really, really white, and this is more like beige, right? Like a book color. And I can concentrate better on books like this. So this is kind of like also just in terms of the format. And this author, I know like nothing about this author. I tried Googling him, and he only has stuff about himself on Amazon Books. He basically, it's just essays. He just writes essays. I know nothing. There's nothing online about him, which is always really weird when you don't find anything out about an author. And I have definitely found a couple of spelling errors. So that always screws up any reading experience when you find a spelling mistake in a book. And I can't remember where it was, but it was definitely in here somewhere. So it's probably good, but the thing is, like it says here, overcome anxiety and low self-esteem. It's like, I don't have anxiety and I don't have low self-esteem. I just want to know more about emotional intelligence, but when it comes to that, actually listening to podcasts has been more helpful. So maybe I'll give it a go again. Then we have one other book that I got through, which I forgot was not in the pile. This is a Christian book as well, called Courage for the Discouraged, which I really, really enjoyed. This is by Simon Lawton. He's a pastor in England, and I have so many notes in here, and it's really, really good. It's basically kind of like a day-by-day devotional, but it's not like you have to start on January 1st or anything. It's just chapter by chapter, different devotionals, basically of how to figure out how to choose joy and stay encouraged even though life is hard. And I think he wrote this during the pandemic, so it's quite good as well, because obviously it's got references as well to the times that we're actually living in right now. And so it's set up so you'll have a chapter like this, and then he'll tell a bit of a story and write a bit of a devotional. He will divide it into subsections, and then there's a prayer, and then there's further reading with different Bible verses. So that was something that I was reading every morning on the train when I was going to my old job, and I really, really like it, and it's something that I'm probably just going to try and read every year because it's just a really good devotional. And I was feeling so discouraged this year with everything going on. yeah, and I wasn't very deep in like my Bible reading, so this is definitely helpful. And yeah, Simon Lawton is a good author, so I think he's got a few other books as well, and this I just found on Amazon as well. Then the final book that I'm still reading is this. So I know like nothing about football. Like, I watch the World Cup, although I'm not watching the World Cup this year because I just find it very weird to watch football in the winter. But I know nothing about football, but Alex Ferguson managed Manchester United for 30 years, and he has some incredible stories about like how he led his team, and I just like learning about leadership, and I like learning, yeah, it says here, they won an astonishing 49 trophies while he was manager at Man U, and obviously he grew Man U into one of the biggest commercial brands in the world. So this is a cool book. I've only just started it, so it's my current read, and it's kind of fun because there's also like stories about, you know, big names like Beckham and Ronaldo and different people. So yeah, it's a good book, and I'm pretty much nowhere near the end, but I really want to keep reading it. So it's just called Leading by Sir Alex Ferguson. And there's a foreword from Sir Michael Moritz, who he does something in Silicon Valley. Those are all the books I read and tried to read, and I'm still reading. So, yes. Thank you guys for listening and watching this video. I hope it helped you. I hope you also were encouraged that actually sometimes you don't have to finish a book. If you don't like it, you don't have to finish a book. Also with movies as well. Sometimes I'll start watching a Hallmark movie and I'm like, I love a little bit of cringe, but sometimes they just are so bad in the first 5 minutes that you have to turn it off, and that's okay. And sometimes that happens with books as well, and it's totally fine. But I'm quite glad that I actually did read quite a lot this year, considering I didn't really have a lot of time. And there's like half of these I still need to finish, but it's okay. It's progress, I guess. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know what you want to see in the next video. And also just enjoy this time, slow down a little bit. Don't lose momentum, but slow down, read some books, get cozy. It's that season where you can also just be in your room and just read and not feel bad about not going outside. I really want to keep reading more this winter. This video is basically also reminding me to keep reading. So thanks for watching.